Hi, I'm your host Vasco Duarte. Welcome to the Scrum Master Toolbox podcast, where we share tips and tricks from Scrum Masters around the world. Every day, we bring you inspiring answers to important questions that all Scrum Masters face day after day. Hello everybody, welcome to our Product Owner TGIF and Friday episode this week with Karina Margole. Hey Karina, welcome back.
Hi Vasco, it's good to be back. Happy Friday.
Happy Friday everybody. And that's a great phrase to hear, right? Happy Friday. Yes. All right, cool. So next we talk about product owners. We'll describe what great product owners look like in a second. But first, tell us about what might have been potentially the worst product owner anti-pattern you've witnessed in your career.
Sure. So I think it's not going to be anything revolutionary. I think the worst thing that I think anyone who's worked with a product owner that has experienced it is an absent product owner. It's a product owner who's the product owner in name, but they're just not there. They're not present. They're not communicating with the team. They're not answering any questions. They're not providing any clarification, and the team is just left in the void trying to figure out what it is that the product owner wants from them to do. And then they're just stuck and not really able to do anything. And I think for me, I had, back in my consultancy days, I had a very interesting project that we were working on where the product owner wasn't there. They were not available for the team. I think they only really interacted with the team once a week at the product review and the sprint planning, and that was it. That's about as much as we heard from the product owner. There was also another team that was involved doing the second part of the same product, and we from our side tried very, very hard to integrate with them. So because we were doing the back end, they were doing the front end, and we tried very hard to kind of integrate with them to make sure that, we actually had a working product at the end that we could show, but the product owner actually kept that line very close. They didn't really allow us to interact with the other team for some reason, so we couldn't really integrate with them because I was like, they're doing their stuff, you do your stuff, and then that's it. It's like, okay, and we kept saying that that's a bad idea. We need to make sure to integrate. We need to make sure that it works end to end. And so obviously, by the time we came back to the end of it, when we tried to integrate, API calls didn't match, like the way we built the systems didn't match in the slightest. And so, it was a disaster. And the PO at the end was very angry at us for some reason. I was like, look, we told you that was going to happen. Let's, so we ended up finishing that project in the end with, we had to take extra time. Obviously it cost more money to our client and everything, but that was a disaster. It's not being there, not being able to provide the answers to the questions that we needed in terms of how they want to integrate, but also having another team and keeping us away from that team so that we couldn't integrate properly and test things properly. Obviously, ended up being,
that is such a sad story, right? I can only imagine the pressure people were under, and then at the end trying to integrate the work and nothing works, and we don't know why, because maybe they got different information than we did and we all thought we were doing the right thing, but we weren't. Wow. Yeah. That is really, and I think that the way you describe it, the absenteeness of the product owner is definitely a problem, no question about that. But wanting to keep the teams apart, it sounds to me like a product owner that does not understand at all what software development is about.
Yeah, which is very weird from that specific product owner because we've worked with them before and they were absolutely brilliant before. When it was just one team, it was just us doing the work with them. They were absolutely brilliant. They were there, they were present, everything was good. But for some reason, for the second part of this project with a separate team, I don't know what changed, but all of a sudden, they weren't there. They wouldn't allow us to integrate with that team, and it ended up being just a really, really bad project, and it was suffering for everyone.
So a couple of anti-patterns that I hear in your story, of course, the most obvious is being absent, that's clear, but also wanting to dictate what teams do, because you have to if you separate them, because they can't work together, right?
Yes.
So you wanting to dictate what teams do and never letting them see what the other team is doing, kind of like separating, siloing teams. And, there are some good reasons why that should happen in, for example, really highly sensitive data handling projects. You might want to separate the team that handles the actual data from the team that uses the data. But of course, you will need to create like synthetic data and synthetic databases for the team that does the use of the data to be able to. And that's, I think, one thing that we as Scrum Masters really need to be careful, because one thing I would say is, if I was working with this PO, I would have a conversation about who is responsible for setting up the work environment for the team, because the PO should never be that person. The PO is way too far removed from the actual software development to tell the teams how to work together. And maybe it's somebody else above anywhere, I don't know, but it can't be the PO, right? That would be at least one thing that I would say, hey, I understand there are constraints we may need to follow, but who do I need to talk to make sure that we make the environment a successful environment for the teams, right?
Yeah, I think in this particular case, because we were a consultancy, the other team was also a consultancy, and that product owner was he was the product owner, but he was also essentially the responsible person for the delivery of the entire thing. So kind of handling project management, everything, and, managing the both agencies that were doing the work. I think kind of that just came a bit too much with everything else that person had going on. I don't know, but it ended up being, because they tried to manage everything and they did a bad job of it. Again, with empathy, I don't know what was going on. Maybe they were overwhelmed, but it resulted in a subpar experience for everyone involved.
And the consequences are obvious. There's no judgment there. Of course, there aren't only bad product owners, right, Karina? There are some amazing product owners out there as well. So let's dive into one of those. Karina, describe for us the best product owner you've ever worked with. How did they work?
So this was in a company I worked for quite a while back, but it was a very interesting role, because it was a fairly technical role. We were working with Salesforce. Like the tool was Salesforce, the team was a Salesforce team, and the product owner was kind of responsible for. I think we were transitioning from one sort of the way we had Salesforce to some other. It was, I think, New Lightning or something. I don't remember what the details of it was, but the product owner there was very switched on. They were very technical as well, so they had a very good technical understanding of what was happening on the Salesforce side and the team that was working with it. And the best thing that I just admired the way that product owner worked was they really collaborated with the technical team in order for the technical team to create the solution that was needed. So that it was really that, that thing of the product owner came with the problem, what the problem was, and then they collaborated with the technical team in order to solve that problem. And the technical team had full ownership of how they solved that problem. There was no kind of, the product owner wasn't tempted to solutionize. They didn't have any preconceived notions of how things should be solved. They just came with a problem statement and allowed the technical team to just solve that problem. And the other part of what made that product owner brilliant was that they were really close to the customers, and they would go and talk to customers and understand, because obviously it was for an internal team, it was a changing in the tool. So the change leadership aspect with that product owner was fantastic, because they involved the people who would be part of that change. They did training sessions with them. They did interviews with them, like during the development. They did interviews with them to make sure that the new system would work for how they work after we released the new product, they would then work with the people who used it to make sure that they were trained up and knew how to do it. So that change leadership was fantastic. It was just, a masterclass in how to do change within an internal team. And so it's kind of, they were so involved in all of it and kind of, but in a good way, not involved in micromanagement-y way, but actually, how can I help? How can I do the things that I need to do so that you can do the things that you need to do? It was brilliant. It was absolutely wonderful.
And it sounds to me that this PO also had a very strong, I guess we could call it like solution orientation, right? It wasn't about what is the tool that needs to be there, but rather how do we get the tool to the users? How do we help them benefit from it? How do we help them adopt this new tool? Is that how you saw it?
Yes. Yeah, exactly. It was all about, they were very in tune with the users that needed to do. So they were very client focused. So what does our client need? What, even if they're internal clients, doesn't matter, it's still a client. What does our client need? How can we get the best thing for them that we can? How can we make their life easier? How can we, help them in whatever way we can? But also, how can we manage that transition for them so that, because obviously Salesforce is used by salespeople, they're very driven, they have very fast pace, they really, in the majority of times, they dislike changes to their system. So how do we manage that transition so that it's nice and easy for them and they can continue doing the work that they're doing in the best possible way and all of that. So that was really good. But also that way, but also they still didn't, what amazed me is that, because usually, you have with roles like the product owner or even the Scrum Master, they're very large roles in that there is a lot of scope for those roles. And so sometimes it can, you will have, some person is very good at this area, but not so good at this area. Some person is good at that area, not so good, or some person might be good in all areas, but not excellent in any one of them, but they're a good all-rounder sort of thing. But what was with this product owner, what was fantastic is that they were really good with clients, but they were also very good with how they interacted with the technical team and how they provided their requirements to the technical team and how they collaborated with the technical team in order to make sure that the requirements were met in the best possible way. And if there are any roadblocks, they problem solve together with the technical team to work around them.
Yeah, and that's so important because there will be roadblocks. There always are. It's just a question of time before they show up. And
absolutely,
the product owners can take this antagonistic stance of stepping back and telling the team, no, you solve it. But they can also come up with solutions and help the team discuss and not necessarily tell the team what to do, but to be part of that process of helping the team come up with potential solutions, right?
Yes, exactly. And
that really sounded like a great PO.
It was a fantastic PO, and it was a joy to work with them when
Absolutely.
I did get to work with them.
It's great when we get to work with
yes.
POs like that. Karina, we're getting close to the end though, but before we go, tell us, where can people find out more about you and the work that you're doing?
Sure. So the best place for people to find out about me is on my LinkedIn. You literally, if you search for Karina Margole, you will find me. There's literally no one else with my name and surname on LinkedIn. So it's fairly easy. And I don't really have any other social media, so that's where you find me.
Absolutely. And we'll put the link on the show notes, make sure people can find it. And why not send a few follow-up questions? And I'm sure Karina would be happy to engage.
Yes, I'm always happy to answer any questions I get from people. So do get in touch with me.
Absolutely. Karina, it's been a pleasure. Thank you very much for your generosity with your time and your knowledge.
No, thank you very much, Vasco. I really enjoyed being part of this podcast as well. It was very fun.
One more week of the Scrum Master Toolbox podcast is over, but there's a lot more we have to share. We have developed our own membership site where you find a community of active and engaged Scrum Masters. In this site, you get access to exclusive content and get to interact with us, your podcast hosts, as well as the best Scrum Masters in the world. So join us at scrummasterpodcast.com and keep this podcast free of advertising. See you next week for one more full week of Scrum Master tips and tricks. We really hope you liked our show. And if you did, why not rate this podcast on Stitcher or iTunes? Share this podcast and let other Scrum Masters know about this valuable resource for their work. Remember that sharing is caring.